Good morning, good morning. Welcome to Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99. We come to Bridge 99 every Monday from 12 until 2 o'clock. And we also link with Reid in New York so that we can engage with the many Jamaicans who live there. We have a large diaspora in New York. We have a large diaspora in many parts of the United States, in many parts of the United Kingdom, and of course in Canada. So we welcome them all. We try on this program to churn up some discussions on issues that we consider to be important. Issues that we think have a lot to do with our development as a nation, as a people. Issues that we think can, if we can sort them out and get them right, can move us forward. And today is no different. So I welcome you all. We'll be here for another 2 hours. And as I said before, we link with Reid in New York, and perhaps now would be a good time to hail up Beauregard. Bo, are you there? Not there yet. All right, we're going to link with them shortly. Jamaica Live on Bridge 99. We're broadcasting here from Kingston, Jamaica. There's been a lot of discussion recently, and rightly so, about education and the poor performance of our students, especially at the secondary level. We have discussed this matter on this program before, on more than one occasion. Let me give you a measurement of the problem. Passing at least 5 subjects at grade 11. That's what they call the CSEC exams. But passing at least 5 subjects, including maths and English, is considered the minimum satisfactory performance for students who are leaving secondary school. Below that, you're not considered to have done well, and for good reason. Because without that, you're not qualified to go on to university. Without that, you're not likely to qualify for much more than a minimum wage job. But only 28%, a little over a quarter, of the students who sit the CSEC exams manage to pass 5 subjects, which include maths and English. Now, maths and English are foundational subjects. They are critical to your ability to understand things and to calculate things, to be able to solve problems and to be able to express yourself. A student who passes only those 2 subjects, maths and English, stands a better chance of making it through life than a student who passes 5 subjects, 6 subjects that don't include maths and English. Our performance in English is not so bad. But almost a half of our students fail mathematics. Why? Why is learning mathematics found to be so challenging, so difficult? Is it the method of teaching? Is it the ready availability of gadgets, including your cell phone, that can quickly do calculations, so you don't have to bother to learn the basic principles? Is it a lack of focus, a lack of emphasis? Our students in grade 11 sit an average of 6 subjects. They pass an average of less than 4. And those are averages. Some of our students, some of our brighter students, they pass 8, 9, some of them 10 subjects. But many of them pass only 1 or 2. Some of them pass none at all. I have suggested, and I am dead serious about it, that instead of every student being loaded up to sit 6 subjects, let us adjust the load. It is no point sending that student into this examination room to sit 6 subjects if we know from intelligent assessment that he or she is going to fail most, if not all of them. Those kids who have shown that they can manage 8, 9, 10 subjects, by all means, let them do it. A future Rhodes Scholar may be among them. But if a student is struggling, if a student shows clearly that he or she cannot manage the 6 subjects, why don't we say, okay, we're going to lighten your load. You are going to sit only 2 subjects. But those 2 subjects will be maths and English. For 5 days a week, your classes will be maths and English. Your homework that you take home will be maths and English. And when exam time comes, you will be sitting 2 subjects, maths and English. You may not become a Rhodes Scholar, but we're going to make sure that when you leave school, you are proficient and certified in maths and English. Because any employer you go to, that is what they're looking for. Maths and English. Some people tell me that, no, that is wrong, that I'm crazy, that students need to have a rounded education, so they must learn Caribbean history and social studies and all kinds of other things. Caribbean history and social studies, with due respects, are not what the employer is looking for, are not what kids leaving school can rely on to get a decent job and to devise a career path toward financial independence. You know, I remember when I finished 5th form, I went looking for a holiday job out at the Twickenham Park Industrial Estate. And when I told the boss man about how many passes I had got in senior Cambridge exams. That was what we did before CXC came into being. When I told him about the amount of passes that I had gotten, I boasted to him that I had got a distinction in religious knowledge. And I thought he would have been quite impressed. And you know what he said to me? He said, well, that will help you to get to heaven, but it will help you to get a job in my factory. I still got a job because I had passed maths and English, which is what he was interested in. Today we want to focus the discussion on maths and English, especially maths. Why do our students find it such a struggle to master mathematics? To add up numbers, to divide numbers, to multiply numbers, to work out equations, to know that if you put this on one side of the equal sign and that on the other side of the equal sign, this is how it will work out. Why do our students find it so difficult to handle that? Is it a Jamaican problem? Is it a third world problem? Is it a worldwide problem? And what can we do to help our kids to overcome this challenge? So that's our discussion today, because I think that solving this particular problem, especially when it comes to maths, in that solution lies, I believe, the hope of and possibilities of our young children when they leave high school. So that's what we want to discuss today. And we have some very, very knowledgeable people on this subject who have far more understanding of the intricacies than I do, that we're going to be talking with today. I don't know if we can link with Bo now, can we? Bo Regard.
Good afternoon, Mr. Golden.
Man, I'm looking for you for the last 15 minutes and I can't find you. Where you been?
I've been listening to your commentary for the last 15 minutes, sir.
You mustn't hide from me, you know.
No, man. Nothing like that.
How is New York?
New York, all right, unfortunately, yesterday was the 21st anniversary of 9/11.
Yes.
Yeah, so, that was a big thing here. A solemn day here in the United States overall.
Yes.
And as usual, it was a day of solidarity. A lot of people standing together, mourning together, remembering together the lives that were lost on that day. So
that's good. How many people died in that? Over 2,000?
Over to close to 3,000 in the World Trade Center. I believe it was 2,700, and then there were the other flights plus the Pentagon also. So, it was.
What's the weather like up there today?
The weather is great today. We had a lot of rain yesterday, but it's beautiful today. We're getting in the low 80s.
Yesterday, when I saw President Biden on television, I think he was at the Pentagon. He had to be sheltered by an umbrella.
Yes. We had some rain. Some showers passed through the East Coast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's not too cold now.
No, it's beautiful. Yeah, okay. Even though the summer is winding down, coming to a close.
Yes.
It's a lovely day here.
Well, you better send all your coats. You better send them to dry cleaners because you better get ready.
Definitely getting ready, sir, as do the students in Jamaica. I love the subject that you're getting ready to speak about today.
Yeah, man, we want to talk about maths and English because I don't know why it is so difficult for us. What's your observation up in the States in terms of kids getting on top of maths?
My thing is this: when it comes to math, I believe that millions of people struggle with a subject such as math because it's something that takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of time. It takes steps and processes to solve problems. So sometimes kids do get bored. They do get impatient, and then they lose focus.
But why, Bo? I mean, I did maths, and I was pretty good at it. But I was good at it because I loved it.
And that there's the answer.
I found it challenging,
Yes.
and I love to respond to the challenge. And the thing about it is that when you do, for example, in English, you do a composition. The teacher is going to mark it, and you have no idea what the teacher is going to conclude in terms of the quality of what you have written. But what I loved about maths is that there was only two ways. You're either right or you're wrong.
You're wrong. But it's the steps and the process that get you to being right or wrong. I believe that plays a big role in it. I mean, some people are going to excel in math because they love math and it's easy for them, while others it's not so easy and they're not going to do so well. So they might find that they excel in English. They might be much better in English.
What I think we need to do, we need to find out what is the best approach. Are we employing the best approach? I don't know whether it is the way we teach it. Right. I don't know whether it is because of the intrusion of all kind of gadgets that cause people not to have to bother study the fundamentals of math, because there's always a little instrument that you have that can work it out. But then when you have to solve problems on the job, you can't rely on instruments. You have to rely on your intuition and your understanding of numbers and how numbers relate to each other,
Yes, well, in the word that you said about the fundamentals, there's another word in there that's fun. I believe we have to start making teaching fun again, and make it a pleasant experience for teachers and students.
So that the kids look forward to it.
Yes, exactly.
You're right. All right, Bo, nice to hear you.
You too, sir.
Good. Okay, we're talking about the difficulty that our students seem to have with coming to grips with mathematics and English. And as I indicated before, I'm especially concerned about the challenges that they seem to be experiencing with mathematics. And we're very pleased now to be joined. Not yet. We're hoping to have two experts on this matter. Yeah, we have Dr. Andre Hill, who is the National Literacy Coordinator. We hope to be joined as well by Dr. Tamika Benjamin, who is the National Mathematics Coordinator. But we're going to start with Dr. Hill. Dr. Hill, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Golding. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
How are we doing in terms of literacy? Well, I really want to move beyond literacy, but mastery of English at the grade 11 level. How are we doing?
All right. So do you want me to speak any at all about literacy first, since you mentioned that? Or would you prefer me to go directly?
I really wanted to go to this exit students and how they're doing in terms of understanding grammar, English, syntax, because it's so important for them to be able to express themselves.
Yes. All right. Well, first of all, let me share some statistics with you and your audience. And I'm going to be sharing data from 2016 to 2022. So of the total cohort that sat in 2016, 71.2% actually mastered the CSEC English language exam.
71.2?
71.2%. That was in 2016.
But that's not bad.
No, that's not bad. Still,
what was it in 2020?
In 2020, it was actually 85.1%.
Well, but then maybe I'm identifying a problem that don't exist.
Well, no, I agree with you that there is a problem. Why? Let me explain. All students in grade 11 are not admitted into the exam. In other words...
Oh, the cohort problem.
Right. So there's a cohort problem. Approximately 40 to 45,000 students every year exit grade 11. And of that total number, we may have probably about 20 or 25% of that number every year that usually
don't sit
do
the
not
exam.
sit the exam. Right. However,
No, let me ask you this question though. Why do they not sit the exam? They're not up to the scratch? They're not up to the level?
right. So schools normally do not enter students to sit the CSEC exams if, and this is in any case, any exam at all at CSEC level, if the schools determine through their classroom teachers that they are not ready. So yes, the schools are saying that the students that they do not allow to sit are not ready for the exam. They do not.
So give me the magic number now, Dr. Hill. What is the percentage of the cohort that passes English?
Right. So the entire figure will have to be separated into two exams. So I wanted to tell you and your audience that we also have students sitting the City and Guild English Skills exams. So usually those students who are not allowed to do the CSEC English exam are allowed to do the City and Guild English Skills exam. Now, of course...
What's the difference between the two?
Well, one of the differences, one is a Caribbean-based exam, the CSEC, and the other is a British-based exam. However,
do they have equivalent value?
Well, the City and Guild officers have said that the level 3 exam of the three types that they offer is essentially equivalent to the CSEC English exam. And I can tell you what percentage of our students mastered that level 3 in City and Guild as of 2020. You want me to share that figure with you?
Yeah, but I'm looking for the magic figure. Of the cohort, whether it is 41,000, 43,000, 45,000, what percentage of that either passes this CSEC or the City and Guild level 3?
Right. So I'm going to answer your question by doing two things. One, so if in 2020 we had about 82% mastering the CSEC of that year's cohort and 70% mastering the City and Guild English Skills exam level 3 of the same cohort, then we are looking at approximately about 30% of the cohort that would have left high school without having been certified in an external exam in English.
All right. So we're looking at about 70% that managed to get through the gate, right?
Yes, pretty much.
All right. Now, give me an idea. How does that compare with the rest of the Caribbean?
All right. So what I can share with you, and these are stats that I have gathered for this year, is pretty much we are almost on the same level with our sister countries in the Caribbean. I know that regionally for this year, the CSEC English pass is 73%. 73% regionally.
Yeah.
And if you break it down per country, you'd be in the average of about 70 to 72%, give and take. For Jamaica this year, our pass is actually 70%.
Well, wait, it's better than I thought before I came on the program. So, I mean, I'm encouraged to hear that. Now, one of the things that I want to explore with you is,
yes,
what are the challenges that we face in terms of the teaching of English? Let me give you an anecdote. I went to primary school at Alpha Primary. I had a wonderful teacher named Miss Gloria Hobson, dead and gone.
Right.
She taught me English in a way, and it was backed up by my mother, who was also a teacher. But they taught me English in a way that if I heard you make a statement that was grammatically flawed, before I was even able to determine what was wrong with it, I just knew that it was wrong because it sounded wrong.
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yes.
I'm going to want to explore with you the challenges that we have, whether or not it is because of our, cultural patois, uh, predilection or what. But,
Yes.
but but I want to come back to that because I gather we also have on the line Dr. Tamika Benjamin, who is the National Mathematics Coordinator. And that is where my greatest problem, my greatest concern are. So can I welcome her to the program? Dr. Benjamin?
Good afternoon.
For one moment, I thought you weren't going to join me today.
No, I'm very much here. I'm very much here.
I'm so relieved to have you. Tell me something
Happy
now.
to be here.
Why we find math so difficult?
Oh,
Why are the outcomes in terms of the performance in the CSEC math exam not what we need it to be? Because it is so critical if we are to, if our students are to have a future.
absolutely. So again, thanks for having me. This is a very good question with a lot of moving parts to respond to it. There are two things there are a number of things that impact math teaching and learning, and I think in looking at the Jamaican context, two of the things stand out in terms of our experience on the ground. One is the attitude nationally, and this is not just students, this is parents, this is sometimes even teachers have to the subject. But mixed into that is a lot of the myths, Certain students can do the subject. So you have all of that. There's a general fear to the subject. If you go into a lot of the Asian countries, you don't see that. There's generally a positive attitude to the subject. Students recognize it is important. So we're fighting. We've actually made some ground there, but that is still a factor that we are contending with. And then on the other end, it's a matter of how we teach the subject. Very abstract. Again, still seeing some gains in terms of shifts there, but it still is a lot of routine and forcing students to rely a lot on their memory versus giving them experiences that are grounded in what they do every day, because all of us use mathematics every day. And so as a result of that, if you mix those two things together, where there's the fear factor, and then I'm forcing you to rely on your memory when you go into an exam setting that is also very high stakes and tension driven, you find a lot of students don't necessarily do well. So even if we analyze like the CSEC passes and we look at the profiles, which is what we've been tracking over time, the lowest level profile, which is just basic knowledge, the students actually don't do very badly at that level. But once they get to the point where they need to apply their knowledge and reasoning comes into play, that's when we see the fall off, the significant fall off in their performance. And that is generally what makes a difference between whether you're going to get a 3 or a 4, or as we're seeing this year, a number of students, most of the grades this year were grade 4s for this year. So that's one of the things that we are struggling with. And we, as I said, we have made some gains. COVID has really hit us hard at grade 11. Most of the gains that the ministry has seen in the last 10 years would have been very pronounced at grade 4. But we are finding as the students progress through the system from 4 up into 11 that there is a significant fall off. And so we're doing a lot of analysis to see what are some of the factors contributing to that.
We're going to have to take a break. Can I ask both of you to just bear with me for a few minutes? We'll take a break, we'll come back. And when we come back, Dr. Benjamin, I'm going to want you to give me some numbers.
Sure.
Of our cohort, and I'm talking about those who were put in the exam room. Of those who should have been in the exam room, of that total, what percentage is coming out with passing grades in mathematics when we come back?
Not a problem.
Welcome back in Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99, broadcasting from studios here in Kingston, Jamaica, but we're also broadcasting live as well on Irish Jam in New York. And we want to welcome the Jamaicans in the diaspora who are tuning in, because I'm sure that this subject is important to them. Isn't that so, Bo?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. All right, we have two very important people on the program now, bro. Dr. Tamika Benjamin, who is the National Mathematics Coordinator, and Dr. Andre Hill, who is the National Literacy Coordinator, both in the Ministry of Education. So it gives you an idea of the mere fact that we have national coordinators in these two subject areas. It gives you an idea of the importance that the ministry is attaching to that. So at any time, if because I'm sure you have some knowledge of what is going on in America. I'm sure that there are many Jamaicans in New York whose kids are struggling with maths in particular. So at any time, jump in and give us the benefit of your own experience and your own thoughts on the matter. Okay?
No problem.
Yeah, Dr. Benjamin.
I'm right here.
Give me some numbers now. What percentage of the cohort, the 41 or the 43 or the 45,000, whatever the number is, of our grade 11 students, what percentage of them come out of grade 11 with maths passes?
All right, so at CSEC Maths passes 2019, and I'm going back because I think it's important to look at the picture before the onset of the pandemic.
Yes.
So 2019, we were just about 30% of the city, 30% of the cohort passed in mathematics. That number held for 2020. It held for 2020, let me just put it that way. And then in 2021, which would have meant that a group of students who would have had most of their grade 10 and 11 would have been online. That number fell to 18%.
Well, perhaps you may agree with me. Let us dismiss that 18, right?
Okay.
So that was extraordinary circumstances, right?
Right. So we're looking at about 30%.
Yeah.
If we're going to consider what was the trends prior to the onset of the pandemic, we're looking at about 30%.
Now, tell me, from your own work, your own discipline, your own training, your own observation, why do our kids find mathematics so difficult?
All right. So it's hard to answer the question looking at the data for grade 11 without going back. Because math, like most other subjects, and I would want to say any other subject, it's really, if you look at how our curriculum works, the foundation is laid at the very early stages. Now, based on the data we have, early childhood doesn't seem to be that critical or main issue. We're actually seeing most of our fall away happening somewhere between post-grade 4, right? You'll find in those early years a lot of the strategies that are generally used, not saying that there isn't any room for improvement. A lot of the strategies that are used are hands-on. They help students to understand what's taking place. They're not forcing them to memorize. So if I would have asked you and a couple other Jamaicans, how do you learn to add, people would talk about putting down this and carrying that and all kinds of those things. So you're taught with this focus on remembering steps and remembering rules. But a lot of the examinations, including CSEC math and now including the primary exit profile, have shifted away from this approach where we place a lot of value on knowledge. Again, it goes back to what we are seeing within the global space. What's the kind of employee we need in the workforce? They need more than just plain knowledge. They're now being required to problem solve. They're being required to apply knowledge. That means the way we teach the students has to shift. It has to shift to a point where that deeper level of learning is taking place. And that's the challenge. Mind you, this is a challenge we've had from before. So we had this challenge even when we were placing knowledge was the main element, but it's now more pronounced because now you are requiring higher order thinking skills from our students. So one thing is that we are clearly not laying a strong enough foundation from the early stages. I'm seeing from 4, 5, 6 coming up. We're not giving them an opportunity to truly understand what they're doing. We're forcing the students to rely on what they can remember. And at the same time, as I would have mentioned before, there's generally this culture of fear. There's actually a term that is used and recognized. There's a culture of fear I always say you'll find parents who say, oh, they have a problem. They'll tell you, they won't tell you that the child can't read, but they will probably tell you that the child can't do math. And they themselves will have that. So that's something that affects how our students see the subject and how important they see it as. Because there is an acceptance that if you can't do well, I say it's okay because I didn't do it. But the world has shifted and we really have to change that mindset at all levels of our system.
Let me pose two questions to you, Dr. Benjamin. One, has technology been helpful or hurtful in the teaching of mathematics? That is one. And secondly, what impact does it have on a child's, I'm searching for the word, on a student's inclination to learn? What impact does it have if the child likes the subject or if the child is frightened by the subject? I mean, when I went to school, I loved maths. I just loved it.
So did I.
Right? But maybe if I didn't love it, I wouldn't have done well in it.
You're correct. It would have had a...
So how do you influence the students' likes and fears?
All right. So the first question you asked me, though, was in relation to technology. And I just want to be clear, because are you talking about using ICT within the context of the classroom or just children? That's the context you're asking about?
Well, when I was studying math, I didn't have not named calculator. Right. I didn't have no cell phone that could work it out very quickly for me, so I had to learn how to do it.
Right. Well, actually, the calculator isn't the issue, right? Because at the same time, you would need to know what you're going to do when you use the calculator. So the calculator isn't a major factor in terms of, and actually, those of us who are trained to teach math, we are trained how to use it effectively so that it can support the process. Again, for instance, if your student uses a calculator and gets an incorrect answer, one of the things we say to teachers is just don't say the answer is incorrect. But let us look at what you did. What went wrong? Where did you go wrong? And you actually use the incorrect answer as a means of helping the student to interrogate and look at what they learned and see where they went wrong. And, so you help them on the right path. If you're just going to say that's wrong, again, I don't know what I did wrong. So again, it's changing again it's how you use the tool versus the tool itself being an issue with the calculator. When we look at other tools that we actually call technology, for us in the math classroom, technology is broad. It includes, your counters. It includes other manipulatives or tools that will help to highlight the concept and help students understand it. The challenge is a lot of times that they're not used as much as they should be used in our classrooms. And that's one of the things that we're really pushing for. A lot of teachers are becoming much more exposed to them and seeing the value of them, and a lot of principals have been moving to use the resources the ministry would have been providing to acquire them for their schools. But every math class should be equipped with those kinds of tools that will help build concepts.
Before you move on to the second question I posed, which is, how do you influence the likes and the fears and the dislikes and so on? Tell me. I've read in the press that we're seriously short of math teachers, specialist teachers in maths and so on, and that is a real problem, I understand, from what I've read. Mm-hmm. But Miss Gloria Hobson, Lord, what a wonderful teacher she was. When she taught me maths, she was no specialist teacher. She taught me maths, she taught me English, she taught me history, she taught me everything. Mm-hmm. And she was a master at everything. Yeah. So why are the fortunes of our students now dependent on getting people who are specialists?
Well, I think when you would have heard those pronouncements, mainly, in my understanding, they would probably apply more at the secondary level. When we speak of specialists in the context, we would have really been thinking at secondary. So we have seen a change because we have a scholarship program, and so we do have a lot more fully qualified math teachers at secondary.
So what you're basically saying is that the teaching of maths requires a special discipline.
It does, and the reason why Miss Hobson may have been able to work with you at the time as a generalist, which means she was trained to teach everything. What we're finding now with changes in our curriculum, and there is a greater need for more specialist teaching. So maybe when you were in school, you wouldn't have heard of a literacy specialist or a teacher would not have been trained in literacy per se, but you will notice that there's been a shift in how we're preparing teachers to align with the new demands of the emerging curriculum, right? So at the primary level, where we've seen the curriculum go, that's one, along with the fact that we recognize that not every single teacher may have had a positive attitude to the subject or a passion for the subject. And that, we know, has affected how they teach the students. We've seen issues, for instance, where teachers don't like the subject. They tell you that. We have data for that. We have done surveys. Teachers don't like the subject. And what we notice is if the curriculum says 5 hours of math per week, the students may get 4 or 3. And that must have an impact on their ability to learn, right? So the thought of going with a specialist approach, which is what we've seen in some other countries, is that we will be able to capitalize on those teachers who are strongest in the content, but also have a very positive attitude to the subject, and will ensure that the curriculum is delivered.
Dr. Benjamin, are you there? We're getting a lot of disturbance, almost like you're in heavy breeze.
In the background, but I don't think it's me because I'm inside.
Yeah, okay. All right, now you're better.
Yes.
Let me bring back in Dr. Hill. Is Dr. Hill still on the line?
Yes, I am here, Mr. Golding.
Yeah, tell me now. Do our students have a problem in the crossover between Patois and English? I mean, Patois is our natural tongue, no?
Yes.
And that will be so forever and ever.
Yes.
I mean, we are never going to get to the stage where we speak, Scottish English. But English is the international language of communication and commerce and everything else. Do our kids have a difficulty in understanding both and transiting from one to the other?
That is a question that is debated in university classes among linguists, language specialists, etc. Now, here's my simple response. The challenges that some of our students continue to face in respect to the learning of standard Jamaican English or standard English is secondary to our language situation, meaning the fact that we are primarily a Creole English-speaking country. Now, of course, because the Jamaican Creole has been lexicized, meaning it has got a lot of its vocabulary from the English language,
yes,
means that there is some tendency to confound the two language systems. Now, the fact, though, is similarly to learning a second language versus...
But because of that fact, though, Dr. Hill, should we find it possible to segue easily, since it is pretty much English based?
No, not quite so. It's a little complex, you see, Mr. Golding. For example, the grammar of Creole is not comparable to the grammar of... So we don't put S's on words that we pluralize in Creole, that we would ordinarily pluralize in Standard English. For example, we say boys in Standard English and we say boy, them in Creole. Some of the other tenses are different. So we have the progressive tense in English ending in ing. I am eating, I am dancing, I was sleeping. In Jamaican Creole, we may say me when they eat or me when they sleep, etc. So there are some grammatical distinctions that complicate that kind of what you would call seamless transition. But here's the point I want to underscore, sir, and your audience. We have to move away from blaming the Jamaican Creole for our students' failure in mastering standard English. And here's why I say this. If students are learning Spanish, if they are learning French, we teach them those languages and we teach them using certain strategies, and many of them learn these languages. So what we need to do is to ensure that we are providing our students with viable instructional approaches when it comes on to the teaching of standard English, notwithstanding the presence and the role of the Jamaican Creole. In my mind, if you actually do a simple assessment of most Jamaican children, Mr. Golding, if you speak to the average Jamaican child in English, they understand you. They understand many of the songs that are produced in the American media that are normally done in English. They listen to them and they understand them.
Can they express themselves in English?
Well, there you go. So we have now different levels of understanding of standard English and different levels of usage of standard English. Now, here's where I'm going to hit the nail. What we have fundamentally is a difficulty in respect to the amount of time students spend learning English in the classroom, the amount of time they spend using English among themselves outside of the classroom.
And what about home?
At play, yes, at home, at play, etc. And if I draw from my own experience as a child growing up, I mean, I'm a Jamaican. I speak Jamaican Creole. I didn't come from a rich background. My grandmother swept classrooms for a living and sent my mother to school. But I learned English. How did I learn it? Well, obviously from my teachers, as well as from my extensive reading habits. And I know, based on my encounter with the practitioners on the ground, that many Jamaican students, perhaps too many of them, do not spend quality time reading literature in English. And I don't mean stories, I don't mean novels, I mean any print that is available in English. Most of the time that students spend with educational resources, Mr. Golding, and your audience, is within the confines of the school day.
Yes.
And once they come out, they transition back to the ordinary everyday engagement.
Are you in the same position that Dr. Benjamin is in, where you need specialist English teachers?
Well, we do need reading specialists, and I make a distinction between reading specialists, literacy specialists, and English language specialists, because more importantly is getting students to learn the fundamentals of English language literacy so that they can transition from that level of learning to read and write in English to now reading and writing to learn through English. So the answer to your question is we do need reading specialists, literacy specialists. When it comes on to the secondary level, where we have the English language practitioners, well, I would say we need more advanced trained specialists at that level.
Can I ask both of you, just to bear with me, I want to bring in now Reverend Peter Espeut, who is a well-known, renowned social commentator, but he's also he also has a lot of experience as a school board chairman, so he has a kind of inside view as to how this challenge that we're talking about, the challenges of learning maths and English, how those challenges are playing out among our students. Peter, are you there?
Hi, Bruce. Yes, I'm here.
I'm so glad to have you on the program.
Glad to be here.
I don't know if you've been listening to the discussion, but we've been trying to see if we can come to grips with what really is, what is at the root of the difficulty that our students have in coming to grips with maths and English, particularly maths. And are we going about tackling that problem the right way, or are there innovations that we ought to be introducing that we're not? What's your view?
I also have 7 years experience as a classroom teacher, in addition to the years as a board chairman. So I have that experience too. I didn't hear Tamika's intervention, but I have had conversations with her before. That problem, she says, I've heard her say, if you give them an equation to solve, they'll solve it. But if you put it in words, they may have difficulty. So the problem would be English. But I was listening to the last speaker. I didn't get his name.
That's Dr. Andre Hill, who is the National Literacy Coordinator at the Ministry of Education.
I was rather taken with what he said. I can't disagree with anything he said. I would have said almost the same thing. looking back at my own formation, yes, I was taught English in school. I'm not sure I was taught it as a foreign language. And I thought that that was the point he was working towards, that you learn Spanish as a foreign language, but we learn English as if it is the language that we speak, when in fact we don't. And so I think that is the thing. Maybe we need to begin to teach English as a foreign language rather than as a language that everyone speaks. But
don't we run into a problem there? I mean, I will confess to you, the only foreign language I tried to learn was Spanish. And I did miserably. Miserably. I mean, if you ask me to say anything to you in Spanish, I can say, well, como hable usted, and that's it. I cannot say anymore.
Right.
So, is there a way, Peter, that we need to bridge whatever appears to be the gap? And Andre spoke about it earlier. The differences between our Creole and our standard English. I don't have a difficulty in moving from one to the other.
Neither do I. And the vocabulary is similar, which point you made. But Andre is making the point that the grammar is different and the syntax is different. And therein lies the problem. But I think he pointed out the real problem. People don't read. I mean, I recall my own childhood. I somehow took a love for reading quite young. In fact, I could read when I was 5 years old. And when I actually went to school, around 5 years old, I got promoted 3 classes in the first week.
We still have things like Hardy Boys, because I used to read those voraciously.
Hardy Boys, and in those early days, Bobsy Twins and Nancy Drew and Tom Swift and all of that sort of thing. And I just read and read and read, so that I was able to recognize what is a good English sentence and what is not. But I just get the impression, as a school board chair now, I take particular interest in the libraries in the schools that I have been chair of. And I make sure that they have, in fact, I have donated all of my books of that vintage to the schools that I was chair of. But the students don't read. I remember when I was in prep school, I go to a primary school. The little prep school had a library. And we would line up to borrow books. And after a while, there were no books. I'd read them all. You read. And then later on, we had to write book reports. So I don't know if that is so much done again.
I made the point earlier, Peter, and tell me whether or not you can identify with this. When I was at primary school, I was taught by a glorious teacher named Gloria Hobson. And of course, when I got home, my mother was a teacher, so she batter me with the same thing. But I learned English in a way where if you said something that was grammatically incorrect, before I could even analyze it to find out what was wrong, it just sounded wrong.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Now, when you read, and you read and you read, and later in life, I like to read The Saint by Leslie Charteris. Dozens of books by the same guy. But his turn of phrase was very, very particular, very, 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 I liked it. And, you know, after a while, your English just begins to be good. Not because of the grammar and syntax you learned, but because, as you say, it sounds wrong or it sounds right.
That's
and in
right.
fact, I won the English prize in my graduating class at the high school I went to. And I don't think it was because of the teachers particularly, it was because I read. And I can't think of a better way to get young people to be better in English than to encourage them to read. But what you're going to make them read? I don't say the Hardy Boys again.
Can I hold all three of you? I want to continue this for a few minutes more, but we have to say goodbye to Irish Jam in New York now. Beauregard.
Yes, Mr. Golden.
Why them not arrange for you to stay with me until the end of the program?
We'll try to make some arrangements, sir.
Yeah, make some noise for me now, but nice to have you.
Always a pleasure. Great conversation. Thank you for the guests and the listeners here in the Tri-State. Definitely enjoy the conversation.
Hail up all the Jamaicans up there for me and tell them us get them winter clothes ready because things will happen.
All right, sir. No problem.
All right, Beauregard. We take a break. We'll come back shortly.
Take care.
Welcome back. It's Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99. We're on our own now. New York just left us. But we've been talking today about the problem, because it is a problem. The problem that our students experience in coming to grips with learning maths and English, particularly maths. They're both issues, but particularly maths. And we have online with us Dr. Tamika Benjamin, who is the National Mathematics Coordinator, and Dr. Andre Hill, who is the National Literacy Coordinator, both with the Ministry of Education. And we also have Reverend Peter Espeut, who is a social commentator, who has been a teacher, and who has a lot of experience in terms of the administration of schools at the board level. I wanted to ask each of you, let's focus on maths first. I wanted to ask each of you, what do we need to do? Dr. Benjamin gave us some numbers that are disturbing. That if you look at the cohort, I'm not talking about the persons who go into the exam room, because that's only a part of the cohort, but in terms of the persons who are in grade 11, all of whom should really be in that exam room, 30% are passing mathematics. What do we do to move that 30 to 50 and then to get it up to 70? And then to say to the South Koreans and the Japanese, well, we're right behind you. Dr. Benjamin, what do we need to do?
Well, for one of the things we need to do is to develop and is to continue to sustain interventions that span our system. We need to be dealing with our primary, dealing with our secondary, and our teachers' colleges. If we only do one and not the other, we won't get sustained improvement. So at our colleges, there are a number of things that we've been doing. We've been doing diagnostics for the students coming in, recognizing they are coming from the system. So we have to make sure that if they have gaps, we identify them, and we're working with our colleges to be more, to make sure they deal with the issues. Because we are seeing that even though they are passing CSEC, coming in with grade 1 and 2, because we have raised the standard to enter a teacher's college, you have to have math at 1 or 2. Even with that, we're still seeing that they have gaps, and we have data to back that up. So we have to support our colleges, resource our colleges, and help our college lecturers who to teach a little differently. We have to continue to promote math as something that's important. We have to do that. We have to build certain skills. So, as I said, CSEC grades on 3 levels: knowledge, comprehension, and I think reasoning. That might be not be the exact word for the last one, but that's the general gist of it. And we're seeing weaknesses with the comprehension, which goes back to reading skills, and we're seeing weaknesses on the reasoning end. So that means we have to change how we teach our teachers. We have to support our teachers to shift how they teach. And so most of our investment, in my view, in terms of targeting the system to see sustained growth, we'll have to target our teachers. If we treat the group of students this year, we have to remember that another group is going to come in next year and the year after. So we'll always be hammering at it. But if we find a way to really strengthen our teachers' capacity and build their own confidence, you know, I often talk about a cycle of underperformance. It's kind of like where we are caught, you know, our teachers not very confident and they pass it on to the students, et cetera, and that group becomes the next batch of teachers. So it's really a very comprehensive approach, and of course, continuing to resource our schools so that the tools that help to make math engaging and fun and interesting and relatable, because a part of the myth for it is that students sometimes say, what am I learning this for? Why am I doing this? Because we have not found a way to help them see the relationship between what they are learning and their everyday life experiences. And we have to create opportunities for those who have gaps to have those filled. We can't just keep passing them through the system without treating the issues that we are seeing when we catch them early on in the process.
I agree with you 100%. Peter, what's your take?
I remember a few years ago, well, many years ago, in the School of Education, maybe it was in the section dealing with the Joint Board, there was a mathematics lecturer who administered a test to the mathematics teachers in the teachers' colleges.
Mm-hmm.
And the vast majority of them failed.
Right.
I don't know if Tamika remembers that incident.
I don't remember, but we have an instrument now, so and the trend hasn't really changed.
Right. So that Bruce, the problem is that you have teachers who graduate who maybe are not comfortable with math.
Right.
Maybe we can even go as far as to say that they are themselves not very proficient in math, maybe barely, who are then sent into the classroom. Now, Tamika said it, that if the teacher is not comfortable, that sort of discomfort will be passed on to the student. I think this is a major issue.
How do we tackle that?
Well, if it starts with the teacher, you have a problem. I mean, specialist teachers at the primary level is probably the answer. At that time, maybe even now, every teacher at the primary level has to teach everything. So you even have to teach math if you don't like it, you're not so good at it. And I think this is where maybe the problem starts. So that if we said, okay, only highly proficient math teachers should teach math at the primary level, then I think the students may in fact not pick up that uncertainty. I know I had good math teachers in my schools, and I did well in math. Of course, I went on to university to study chemistry. My first degree is in chemistry. So obviously you need math for that. But even so, I found that a lot of the students who were doing labs were not doing well because of the math calculations that you had to do with titration and that sort of thing. It's all math. It's arithmetic, really, or algebra. It's not even high math. Again, there were problems there.
Are we making a question to both of you, both Tamika and Peter? Are we making sufficient use of audio-visual technology in trying to get our kids to inculcate an understanding of mathematics?
The challenge with the audio-visual, well, I don't think it's that we could do more of it. The challenge is, again, is that the resources exist in some places. It's how it's used. Because if you can use good tools, but use them badly, so you don't get the impact. And audio visuals help for some students. I think from my experience, what's more important is what we would call tactile, the doing, the touching. So
right.
If we're talking about geometry or measurement, for instance, and some students have no visual experience with a kilometer. So when I say 1,000 meters make up a kilometer, or whatever, you have no visual idea. I used to put my children in the car and drive down the road, and from the house measure what a kilometer is. So they're not trying to remember whether the kilometer is bigger than the meter or bigger than the centimeter. They visually have a representation of it. It's how we use the tools. We have these things, but we don't really use them to create the experiences. So we're more focused on the little gems and stuff for them to remember how many of this make up that and how. But the students actually need that practical experience in the classroom to be able to transition and use it in a meaningful way.
But Peter,
so the audio visuals are good, but
I think the audio visuals of the National Stadium are good for teaching the kilometer and the
excellent tool.
Because with track and field, with our preoccupation with track and field,
right.
People can
bring in the
big
culture.
Distances. Yes,
But
100 meters is easy to visualize because of Usain Bolt. But you're going to ask me something, Bruce.
Yeah, I will put it this way. I mean, you take a Campion college, for example, with all of the success that they record consistently in mathematics. Suppose I was to videotape their math lessons and take that down to Haile Selassie High School and give it to the teacher and put a remote in her hand and say, now run this. Stop it when you need to stop it. Question the students. See whether or not they understand it. If they don't understand it, rewind it. Go back over it. Then you move ahead. Stop it again. Question the students again. Is there a way that we could bring Campion quality maths lessons to the students who unfortunately have to attend schools that don't have the capabilities and the resources of Campion?
I sit on a committee within the Catholic Church that seeks to bring up all our schools to the Campion level. And we think that one way to do that is to do exactly what you said, to record the lessons, not just math, but other subjects too, and then make them available across the system. And we want to try and start that shortly. I think it's a good idea. It's the master teacher idea that if you have top quality teachers, then let them teach, and then you have the teacher in the classroom that is with the students face to face, and you play the thing, and then you stop, as you say, go over it, and then you play some more, and then you go over it again, and that way probably you might make up for the deficiencies in some of the teachers. I think it's a good idea.
Tamika,
and we want to try it and see how it works.
Tamika, are we talking nonsense?
You're not talking nonsense, but as I have shared in other settings, it will require work with that teacher who is not just rewinding and so on. And because that teacher needs to, it can work as a tool to build that teacher's competencies. Because if a child says, sir, I don't understand, or I don't understand, that teacher should be able to offer some support. So for me, that has to be supported by some capacity building for that teacher, where they are growing from the experience as well, but they're not totally absent from it. If a child does ask a question, the teacher must be able to respond as well. There are other settings in which we've used it. The ministry during COVID developed a number of demonstration. Well, we don't call them demonstration lessons, but master lessons that are available to all our schools, recorded lessons. Some of them were used on the television during the pandemic, and we recorded quite a few. I think maybe about 300 math lessons were recorded over the period. So they're there. But again, it's now helping our teachers know how to use it effectively. So there are strategies that we can use. And I think as a part of a robust plan, we could and should incorporate that into the approach that we are going to use.
Andre,
yes.
as we wrap up, Peter spoke about his own absorption in reading. Mm-hmm. I remember as a student, I remember the trips I made to Tamworth Library. And he was right. I mean, sometimes you go there and you're looking for a particular book and you can't find it because it lent out. Because everybody's looking for that same book. And sometimes I ended up down at the Junior Institute down at, they had one just outside of the St. Andrew Parish Church. And of course they had the main one down at East Street. But in this day, I don't know if libraries have any relevance anymore, because I no longer have to go to a library. I go on my computer and I click a couple of times and I'm into some of the most elaborate libraries of the world.
Yeah.
But are our students being exposed to what Peter was talking about? Just reading. Reading and getting a sense of language and syntax and expression.
The answer is no.
Andre, help me with my dilemma.
Right.
When I stand up sometimes and I see some little youngsters, 6, 7, 8 years old, and a dance hall tune is playing.
Right.
And they are miming every word.
Yes.
Every word. They have learned it. They understand it. But why they have problem in miming some English?
Well, let me say the following. First of all, Peter is correct. Jamaican children are not reading enough. And most of the kinds of reading that students in this country engaging is the kind of reading that has been given some utilitarian value, and that is in respect to getting a grade in a class. And I am telling you that that kind of reading is not viable. And we need to move in this country a revolution in respect to truly means to be literate. You hear people talk about Jamaican children being illiterate. I want to suggest to you that Jamaican children are not really so much illiterate as they are refusing to read, as most of them at the end of grade 4 have been certified literate in the grade 4 literacy test, which means that they can read and write information up to the level of what is produced in our local newspapers.
Andre, are we providing them with enjoyable reading material? I mentioned before.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, Hardy Boys were my thing. Right?
Yes. And mine.
I believe the girls used to read Nancy Drew or something like that, but Hardy Boys was my thing. And as fast as I finish reading one, I have to find somebody who have one that I don't read, and I exchange it because I wanted the next one.
Yes.
Because I enjoyed it.
Yes.
But quite frankly, even at my age, if you give me something to read now that I don't find enjoyable or stimulating, I put it down after the first two or three pages.
Yes, yes.
Are we offering them things that excite them, that fulfill, give them some sense of enjoyment and fulfillment?
I do not believe we are doing a good enough job where that is concerned. I give credit to our ministry and to other stakeholders who have provided literature to our students. However, when you look at what they are expected to read at the primary level, there's what you call the Literacy 1, 2, 3 series, Jamaican literature, and the Dr. Bird series with Sweet Mango Tree, The Catwoman, etc. All of those wonderful stories that I think all of us here on this call can identify with. But here's where we have the challenge. Our students have not been immersed in what I call a viable, culturally diverse literature program, which in my mind they should be introduced to from as early as the primary level. And this program will need to be sustained to the end of secondary. If this is done, it means that students now have the opportunity to read a variety of texts. It means that we will be able to better cater to their interests. It means that we will sustain their engagement with language so that they understand how language develops. They see their own language developing. They appreciate how language is used in a variety of contexts. And by extension, they are given extended opportunities to write about what they are reading, to talk about what they are reading, and to engage in further reading. So one of the ways in which, in my mind, we are going to solve the problem of poor mastery in standard English is to engage students in a sustained, culturally diverse literature program which begins at primary and is sustained throughout secondary. We will get them to read and write extensively across the curriculum about what they are reading in the different subject areas, not just novels, not just poems, not just short stories, but informational text as well. And I will make one final point, Mr. Golding. A part of what we need to do in this country because of our language situation is we need to teach our students comparative linguistics. And this is in respect to the Jamaican Creole and Standard Jamaican English being the dominant communication systems in our country. And by that I mean students need to understand what a sentence, what an expression in Jamaican Creole looks like, and what in converse that same idea looks like in standard English. Teachers need to be able to teach this so that when they engage with Miss Lou's poetry, Claude McKay's poetry, Trevor Rose plays, etc., etc., the classics, Dickens, the Bronte sisters, etc., they begin to delve into a rich experience with language and literature that will see them enhancing their language facility. No teacher can get any child to learn enough English by just spending 2 hours with them every day in the classroom. It has to go beyond the classroom level. And what I have just said will provide the opportunities for that.
We're out of time. I want to thank all of you. Dr. Tamika Benjamin, National Mathematics Coordinator. Dr. Andre Hill, National Literacy Coordinator, both with the Ministry of Education, and Reverend Peter Espeut, Social Commentator. Thank you all very much.
Can I say one last thing, Bruce?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you, Mr. Good.
Sure,
I
Peter.
want to challenge Jamaican writers to write the equivalent of a Jamaican Hardy Boy series and a Jamaican Nancy Drew series. There's no reason why they would travel all over the U.S. in their stories. They could travel all over Jamaica. A new incident here in this cave, in that beach, in that mountain, in Trinidad, in Barbados. It has so much possibility.
Excellent
High quality English writing set in Jamaica, set in the Caribbean for our young people to read.
Yes. That may provide the enjoyment and fulfillment that I'm searching for.
Indeed.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Thank you so much. You brought great value to the discussion today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
for having me.
Pleasure.
We take a break. Welcome back. It's Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99. Today we've been discussing the difficulties that our students seem to encounter in learning maths and English, particularly maths. And we've had a very interesting discussion this morning with a number of persons. We're very pleased now to be joined by Mrs. Sonja Harrison. She's the new president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, and they have so much to do with helping our kids overcome this particular challenge. And then we have as well Mr. Radley Reid, former principal of Campion College. Campion College, of course, is legendary in terms of its academic successes, and particularly in terms of getting its students to master maths and English. We're very pleased to be joined by both of them, and they will take us up to the end of the program. Mrs. Harrison, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Golding.
Can I first congratulate you on your election and wish you success during your term of office?
Thank you so much, sir, and good afternoon to Mr. Reid and to all our teachers, our listeners here in Jamaica and in the diaspora.
Thank you so much. Mr. Reid, do we have you online? We're trying to get Mr. Radley Reid, former principal of Campion College. Mrs. Harrison, we've been discussing today the unsatisfactory outcomes of our students at the CSEC level in terms of mathematics and English, but my focus heavily is on mathematics. Dr. Tamika Benjamin, who is the National Mathematics Coordinator, gave us some numbers which indicate, and I'm not going to go by the 2021 numbers because that was affected. Those were affected by the COVID pandemic. But prior to that, our numbers had sort of leveled off at about 30% of the cohort. Now follow me. I don't want to go by the numbers, the percentages of those who sat the exam, because that is misleading. I'm talking about the grade 11 cohort, all of whom should really ideally have been in the exam room. And of that cohort, 30% is what goes into the exam room and pass mathematics. Why is that outcome so dismal? What is causing the students this kind of agony when it comes to mathematics?
So let me get seek to understand. You're saying that 30% of the cohort who have been entered by the school, or the 30% of the cohort who should have been there.
No, 30% of the grade 11 population.
Right. Who sat the exam?
No. In terms of those who sat the exam, it's above 50% or something.
Right. Yes.
But I'm looking at.
Say 40,000 children enter grade 7. 40,000 should be exiting at grade 11.
That's right. And of that 40,000, 30% is what is passing maths.
I think, Mr. Golding, that the challenge we have is a fundamental one. It starts from the foundation, I would like to think. And we have a challenge at the early childhood level. It is predominantly privatized, and except for, the Early Childhood Commission is doing much as it possibly can in terms of establishing standards for just the set up, the infrastructure of where we offer early childhood education. But there still needs much work in terms of the human resourcing at the early childhood level, and certainly I would think the need for continued building of skills and competencies of the persons who orient our children to numeracy and literacy at that level.
Well,
also that there is a mindset in our nation. If we were to poll the nation, we seem to have some kind of apprehension towards mathematics. So there's a predisposition. Say, me never do good at maths. So it's almost like it's a genetic kind of thing that passes on to the children, and so that fever takes root.
Well, you're raising an issue, Mrs. Harrison, that perhaps, in hindsight, I should really have probed with Dr. Benjamin some more. And that is, you can perhaps tell me, based on your own involvement and experience, whether we have established some standards as to what level of mathematics proficiency, for want of a better word, should our students have achieved before they enter primary school and before they enter secondary school. Can I bring in Mr. Radley Reid now? Is he on?
Yes, I am on.
Mr. Radley, thank you so much for joining me.
Good. Yes.
I put the question to Mrs. Harrison, President of the JTA. Have we established what sort of level of competency? Competency is perhaps a better word than proficiency, that our students should have achieved when they leave basic schools, pre-primary, to enter primary, and when they leave primary to enter secondary. Because what Mrs. Harris is suggesting is that when you get the material coming into the secondary school that is not up to scratch, you can't expect to get wonderful outcomes at the grade 11 level in terms of mathematics.
Yeah.
Have we established those benchmarks?
Yes, those benchmarks are there in theory. They are there with the curriculum, what is expected, but the expectation, as Mrs. Harrison said, and good afternoon, Mrs. Harrison, as Mrs. Harrison, the expectations are not met. And so she is perfectly correct when she says that the problem begins at the early childhood level. When you look at the Patterson report, it clearly states that 33% of it states that early childhood students are genuinely not prepared for primary. And 33% of the primary students to secondary can't read or can barely read. 56% can hardly write. 58 are unable to extract ideas from sentences in English. That is what it is saying about the students who,
so let me ask you a question.
Yes.
So all of those basic schools, When I was involved in representational politics, I had a lot of them and paid a close attention to it. What are those basic schools doing with the kids? They're just babysitting them?
Well, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say they are only babysitting them. But many of them do not have the type of resources to teach children mathematics in particular at that level. For instance, you can go into those basic schools and many of the students could count very easily from 1 to 100. The ordinal nature of numbers. But if they cannot differentiate between 5 and 2, the cardinal value, which is the most important value. And so you see, it's what is taught and how it is taught. For instance, they will introduce topics of which the teachers themselves are not au fait. And so, of course, we have a problem there.
Well, let me ask Mrs. Harrison this question. When my granddaughter leaves early childhood, pre-primary, and enters grade 7, what should she be able to multiply 32 by 9?
Yes, based on the NSC, the National Standards Curriculum, she should be able to. She should have a in our current rating or scoring of the primary exit profile. We look at the beginning, developing, the proficient, and the highly proficient. That's how the students are. And that's how their results are presented. And so you would want to, in mathematics, there are different strands: numbers, measurement, geometry, algebra, statistics, and probability. And so these are the different strands that you, based from the NSC, that they should be able to have a good grasp. So the child performing at the proficient or highly proficient level, that is what the child. But let us go back again to the early childhood, the foundational level. Many of our colleagues there are hard trained. You may have, in some of them, you have one trained graduate. That the government, in terms of their initiative, seeking to ensure that you have at least one trained graduate. But that individual oftentimes has managerial or leadership responsibilities for that institution, and oftentimes has a class, him or herself. And so, that's kind of in terms of being able to do the full gamut of sharing all the competencies and helping to empower his or her colleagues is not always, maximized as much as it's possible. So we have to go back to looking how it is that we invest in early childhood education, because that is the crux of the matter, I believe. And literacy is twinned with numeracy. I don't believe that we can have a sustained kind of turn in improvement in our students' performance in cities. We do not look at winning numeracy and literacy. Such a campaign, I believe, is needed as a nation, where it is that we do that kind of emphasis to change the narrative and to get our parents to support the educational process at that time, stimulating the environment, because school will start the process, but the home needs to reinforce. I would say I serve at a rural primary school, and literacy is our flagship. That is what I am driving there. Literacy. We have a school-wide literacy program. And so I beg the parents, I said, if it's even picture reading, just let the children look at the story and tell you about the picture. Let them articulate. If it's just that, even if you are not able to read with the children. And of course, the software, they allow the children to use the thing to watch movies and to go on Netflix and to play games. That same little access that they have, they can also use it. And we share with them softwares and places where they can go, free online offerings that can help the children in that area.
Can I put this question to you? You mentioned the deficiencies in our early childhood system. You say only one graduate trained teacher.
In most, yes.
In most. Now, can I put to you, and this is a discussion that I've had on a previous program here in which Mr. Reid was one of our guests. Is there any value in using more audiovisual technology? In other words, if the teacher may not be trained in mathematics, may not be trained in teaching full stop, but if that teacher were able to run on a screen a video that helps those little 5 and 6 year olds to understand the rudiments of numbers and calculations, would that help? In other words, my grandchildren may reach my age before we get to the stage where we have a full cadre of trained teachers in our early childhood system. Is there a way that we can shortcut that process and improve the quality of pre-primary students that are entering grade 7?
It will help, no doubt about that, Mr. Golding, that the audio and the ICT will help to enhance the delivery of the lessons or for the students to grasp the concept. But there is nothing, I believe, that can really replace a student being so immersed in the delivery of a particular concept, and when they have that aha moment, when they finally get an understanding of how this thing came into being. And so I think it is important, yes, we can employ the technology because it will teach us some. But again, we will always need that hands-on experience for another some, so that multiplicity of strategies in terms of how we deliver, I think is always important to the process. It's just interestingly, I was watching a video about learning styles yesterday, and the PhD candidate was really seeking to debunk, the myth that the thought process that we have distinct learning styles. And so he was really putting forward that if we do a multiplicity of approaches, then that will seek to reinforce and solidify concepts when it is that they are taught to students. So the audio visual will help, the visual thing will help, but doing concretized hands-on things, certainly we cannot ever replace those.
Radley, how do we bring some of the Campion magic to address this problem?
It's certainly not a Campion. It's not a magic at all. It is, and other schools are doing as well as Campion. What it is, there are several factors. And I agree with my colleague, Mrs. Harrison, when she says the technology, educational technology, is very, very important. But especially at that particular age, you cannot do without the teacher, because the best way of learning is by doing. And everybody knows that. And especially in mathematics, doing is very, very important. But let me go back to your question. There are several factors. First, you have to have the teachers with the competence. You need the leadership. You need leadership. You need to have a proper structured curriculum which is properly scoped and sequenced according to the children who you are teaching before, who are sitting before you to teach. You have to have the resources. You need to be able to analyze data and use that analysis to move you forward. That is one of the biggest strengths of Campion College. Campion College does a lot of analysis of data, and from the analysis, it determines what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, and that is done not only in terms of external exams, but you do a lot of formative assessment as you go through the time. Also, the attendance is a very, very important thing, and punctuality, because the attendance, say at Campion and good many of the good performing schools, whether primary or high, their attendance rate is quite high. Can I put a question? These are factors which affect the outcome at the end.
Let me put a question to both of you, because I believe that a big part of it, guide me if I'm wrong, because I have no expertise in education, but guide me. I believe a big part of a student's learning process and outcomes and success has to do with attitude. Now, to what extent is our school environment giving that child the kind of excitement, the kind of attraction? To what extent are they leaving home with a mindset that makes going to school an outing? I have a little granddaughter. You see, she's going to be how old? She's going to be 5 years old end of this month. She gets bored during the summer holidays. She gets bored. I mean, if you gave her a chance, she would go to school Saturdays and Sundays as well, because school to her is fun. She enjoys going to school. Now, how important is that in terms of the receptivity of that little mind for learning?
Go ahead, Mrs. Harrison.
Very important, and I'm sure your little granddaughter, Mr. Golding, goes to a school where the parents are committed to helping with the resourcing of that environment that reinforces what is done at home, and home reinforces what is done at school. And so hence you see the disconnect, where it is that we call for a national campaign where it is that we help to retrain mindset and environment, where it is that we get our parents to understand that resourcing their children to come to school with the necessary tools is important to the process. Now, you may not have it to send a backpack at the beginning of the school year, but one by one, incrementally, you provide the things as you are so able and as you are as the child is in need of same as we go along. So we need that kind of partnership as we go forward. And so when the child comes to school again, our employers, the amount of monies that are provided for us to resort school, only 20%, up to 20%, we are able to use of the regular grants in order to purchase teaching supplies, that kind of stuff. So it is a teacher out of his or her pocket. Many of those primary schools that you go into and you see resources up, the teachers bought those out of their own pocket, or they what we call trashables at college. We're garbage collectors. Teachers are garbage collectors. So we are walking around and collecting these things in order to make these learning aids and things that we see in our classroom. of how the schools are resourced and how it is we engage parents to partner in that resourcing and also sending their children, as you would have accurately said, with a mentality that you're going to work, because a student is your occupation is a student. You are going to work. So you should not go without your tools, and you should not go without a mindset that you are to produce something at the end of the day.
Radley, let me hear you.
Yes, 100% in agreement with my colleague. The environment plays a very, very important part in learning. And so if the environment in a school is not conducive to learning and teaching, you have a problem there. Also, the interest of the student is very, very important. And since schools are not only dealing with academics, schools are dealing with the holistic development of the student. And so schools have to deal with value systems. Schools have to do with proper behavior, proper conduct, deportment, etc. Because all of these are important to learning. And so when you say at the question you asked, how important is the student's interest, the student's focus, the student's concentration is on in doing better. That is, those things are very, very important to the outcome at the end.
Let me ask both of you a bold question. I meant no apology for asking it. Are our parents letting down the students? In other words, are our parents focusing on, them finding money to buy the uniform and the bus fare and so on, but once them reach a school, is the teacher problem that? Are our parents providing the kind of support system that is absolutely critical if the schools are to succeed?
Go ahead, Mr. Reid.
Well, my answer, I can't give you a straight answer to that. There might be, and in my own feeling is that many parents really try to help their children. I think a higher proportion try to help their students, in my view, than those who do not. But I think one of the big problems is that many of the parents do not have the necessary resources themselves to help their children.
Well, I understand that, Radley, but I don't want to make no artificial excuse for them. For example, out of every 10 parents that we have out there, how many of them, when the kids come home from school,
take the books,
bother to ask them, where's your homework? Let me see your homework.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you.
And say to them, well, all right, have your dinner, and the moment you finish dinner, you sit down at the dining table.
Same way. That is it, Mr. Golding. So we have our parents. I do agree with Mr. Reid that they do try to resource their children as best as they can, but resourcing alone and not ensuring that your investment, there is a return on your investment. Because investing in their children, when they would have denied themselves for those who choose to deny and provide the resources for their children, they're not following up on that.
Well, let me ask you another question, Mrs. Harrison. At your school, what percentage of the parents come to the school and sit down and say, Principal, how is Roger doing? How him getting on? Do they bother to do that, or they just expect you? They expect you to somehow manufacture a road scholar out of what they send you.
Indeed, and you do not have 50%, you don't have 40% doing same. You have a few who do that. And so that is a crux, that's a part of our challenge. Hence a call for a national campaign for education, the value for us to return as a people that education is important. Many parents leave the children at the school gate, grade 1 and grade 6, you see them again for graduation. Same thing when they go to high school. So at grade 6, they will put in a little effort because they say they want to get them into a good school. And then when they get them into high school, when they've gone over that hurdle of getting into high school, then they go usher them in again at orientation. You don't see them again until it's graduation time, and that cannot be sustainable. Our parents need to be there. Many of our parents may not be able to help the children with their work. When I look at my own journey, my mother's education stopped at a particular grade. She could not assist me, but she would ensure, did you get homework? National Library was my favorite place. On a Saturday, I had to go to the library and go right till my fingertip burned me to get the information. And then she would be looking in the book and she would be ensuring that something is taking place in my notebook. If there it is, the book does empty, nothing at all, then something is wrong. So the parents can do more, even if they can't help the children themselves. In somebody in your family, you have a cousin, somebody who they can direct the child to get some additional assistance.
Radley, to what extent has the motivation of our students been, I'm using a harsh word, corrupted? By that I mean, when you and I went to school, poor Mrs. Harrison, she come long after us, right? But when you and I went to school, we came from parents, middle class, but they had to struggle to succeed. They had to struggle to send us to school, no? But we went to school with an understanding that, look, getting a good education is the only secure way you can hope to have a reasonable life forward. So we went in there understanding that we had to study and we had to pass exams, because if we didn't, we were going to fall by the wayside. To what extent do kids today feel that, well, you don't have to study because you can become a artist and cut through to tune, or you can do some lot of scamming and drive a BMW.
Okay.
So this kind of urgency, the kind of compulsion for you to work hard, whether it is in grammar or whether it is in being apprenticed to some plumber and becoming a plumber yourself, that kind of pressure, has that been diluted because of the diversion into all sorts of other opportunities?
It has been heavily diluted, Mr. Golding. It's Bruce. They're very diluted. You don't find it's a great proportion of the parents who put the necessary attention that they must give, so that their students, will study hard enough. I had an experience. I've had several experiences, but this one really. I visited a school in the West, and I noticed that there was a very big fall in the attendance of boys in fourth and fifth form, fifth form in particular. And I asked the principal what was the reason for this, and he said, at the end of the day, just listen, and I will tell you the reason. And I listened, and the only strange thing I heard a lot of bikes, heavy bikes passing. And at the end of the day, he said to me, "What, did you find out anything?" I said, "No, I only heard bikes passing, and he said, that's that. And he told me that these boys were leaving school to engage in scamming. And I said, what about the parents? Have you been calling in the parents? And he said there was little or no support from the parents. That's just one example. And I think that could be multiplied throughout. That the type of parents we had, which insisted.
Maybe the parents driving a BMW too.
Who knows? But the insistence on getting a good education to lead you into the future. It is not like our time.
Our values have shifted.
Rather sad note on which we have to end the program because we're out of time. But perhaps we need to take this up. Can I sort of reserve both of you to come back on sometime in the future so that we can continue this, because I believe it needs some further airing and ventilation.
Not a problem at all, sir.
Not a problem, because I would like us to look at some statistics, to say what is the direction we are going in and what we can do, to change that particular direction.
All right, let's look forward to that. Look forward to that. Thank you very much, both of you. Mrs. Sonja Harrison, President of the JTA, Mr. Radley Reid, former Principal of Campion College. That brings us to the end of the program. Next week we'll be back here to do it all over again, Jamaica Live. God bless you. Have a good week.